Awesome. We're going to talk about assessment. Nothing like moving from engagement to to assessment. Speaking of engagement, um, thinking about assessment. Honestly, when Michelle and I were talking, I feel like there have been common issues, common things that schools have been struggling with. And one of the major things, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I want you guys to chime in. One of the major things that I have been finding all teachers have been having a hard time with, K-8, but especially middle school teachers, is feeling the pressure to keep up with like the daily check-in of work and the assignments that they're feeling like they're now more than ever having to like submit more grades than maybe they would have in the past. And again, I'm not putting words in your mouth. This might not be you, but also I think alongside of that, teachers are also saying to me and saying to each other, you know, Megan, I feel like they're not in front of me. I'm not getting a good assessment of what they're able to do or what they're doing or not doing based on the assignments because they're not in front of me. So with those kind of things in your mind, when it comes to assessment, what's been difficult? What's been trickiest for you when it comes to the assessment piece this year, but also online learning in general the past couple weeks? Any thoughts?
I have one.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm getting
Go for it, Leah.
Snack time here. I think balancing different platforms to collect information without having too many, but not always using the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we ended up having kids just do comprehension checkpoints on a story that was on a Google Doc, and they were commenting, but I found that I was spending a lot of time explaining how to use the comment feature, which isn't bad, but then it was just something different. So I don't know. I think that's a tough, like, fine line. It's not always another Google form or always the same thing, but you're not using a ton of instructional time.
Because when it's the same thing, then you get disengagement from what we talked about before. So you want to shake it up to keep kids engaged, but it's also teaching into it is hard. Yeah. I wonder, one thought, and then you guys, I can share a couple other things that I wanted to share with assessment, but I want to make sure it fits kind of your needs. One thing that I'm thinking of a school I was working with a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about this exact thing, Leah, and they were saying that one thing that's been helping them is at least once a week, students submit something on the same platform. So like, even if I use different platforms, maybe 4 days during the week, on a 5th day during the week, or on one day, it's the same. Stick with me for a second. And that one that's the same happens to be the one that I look at the most. Let me explain a little bit, and I think this might help. In the spirit of there's a lot to look at, trying to think of the best way to approach this. In the spirit of there's a lot to look at, and we have all these assignments. If you look across the next like 5 days of instruction or week, let's say it was Sunday and you look at your week, if it was a normal week, what week is normal these days? I don't know. But you look at your lessons and you've got, let's say there's 5 different lessons of that week. Okay. So you and Jackie are teaching and you've got the comprehension check lesson. You've got a lesson on, vocabulary and theme and text evidence. It wouldn't be all those random things, but you know what I mean? You've got 5 lessons across your week. And I'm going to shake up the platform, like you're saying, Leah, to try and keep engagement high. I'm going to try to like do different things in each of those. It doesn't have to be like earth shattering different, but I want to keep engagement high during those. But I also want to save my sanity. So if I look across the 5 assignments, I'm going to pick the one assignment that's not review and not new. You want to pick the middle one. So if you have 5 days, and it doesn't have to be 5 days, just you guys will apply it to your own thinking. But if I look at my 5 days, there's, and I had to put the lessons in order of easiest to hardest. Pick the one that's in the middle. Pick the one that's not new and the one that's not review. And make that the assignment that you're going to spend the most time looking at. You don't have to tell kids that. That will decrease engagement. But make that middle assignment, circle it in your grade book. This is the assignment that I'm going to spend the most time looking at. Like, this is the basket I'm going to put my eggs in. It's not review, it's not new, it's that middle ground. So then that's where I'm saying, Leah, that middle one is the one where I use the same platform. So if it's easiest for me to use Google Forms, or easiest for me, and maybe you do a couple different ones, but use that platform for that assignment that you feel is the most important assignment of that week. Not that the other ones aren't important, but that I keep calling it the star assignment. And kids don't have to know which one it is, but that assignment that's not review and not new, the one you want to spend the most time looking at, I put most time in quotes. Think of a simple platform, or think of the platform that will be easiest for you to look at that work. Does that make sense? So like, that's my idea number one for assessment. And I do have Post-its around here somewhere with this, but idea number one, or suggestion number one, I guess I should say, is to pick one thing. So instead of feeling like I'm looking at 5 assignments across the week, pick the one assignment. Now, that said, what about the other assignments? Because what I said before with engagement is, if the kids never share, if they never have to show anybody anything, that scale of engagement, they're going to be down here. A lot of kids are going to be disengaged. Having them share their work is a way to increase engagement. So when it comes to assessment, if I look across my week and I've got assignments, so I've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and most days kids are submitting something. You guys know, whatever your grade book looks like, or whatever you take that, and it doesn't have to be a week, it could be across a unit or month. Pick the assignment that you're thinking is the one you want to spend the most time looking at, meaning not the review, not the new, the one that's middle of the ground. That's the one you want to spend your most time looking at. And then think about the other work that kids do across the week, and what other ways you can make it visible or get some assessment of those pieces in. So maybe one assignment is self-assessed. So students have to do some sort of self-assessment on one assignment. On another assignment, some sort of peer assessed or peer assessment. And again, you guys will apply this in a way that it makes sense for you. This is not one size fits all, and it's going to look different for everybody. Then there's the one assignment that's like the heavy teacher. This is the one that, like, if I look at anything, this is going to be the one I look at. Again, I don't tell kids this, but it's like what I have in the back of my mind. That's going to be the place, the basket I'm going to put my eggs in this week. Then maybe one assignment is some sort of whole class share, or what I shared before from Dan's class of, I call it a gallery walk, but really it's just making everybody's work public to each other. So like, this would be, even, I think they were filling out, if I remember right, Suzanne and Jillian, when I was in there, maybe, am I crazy for saying they were filling out a Google form at one point? Maybe I'm crazy in thinking that. No. At any rate, no, they were. Okay. They were, but a great thing could be just share your screen with the Google form, and like with their names off of it. Let's look at some of our replies. I'm not saying that's the best example, but you know what I mean? Like, a whole class share doesn't have to be some fancy gallery walk. It could be just sharing the Google form with each other. And then I do think another day could be some sort of group share in breakouts. So Dan and I were talking about this, and he said, Megan, they really respond well when I say go to breakout rooms, and, you know, the person whose birthday comes next, happy birthday, share your screen and share your writing with the rest of your group mates, or whatever it looks like. You guys get the idea. It doesn't have to look like this when it comes to assessment, but basically think about assessment as getting somebody's eyes on their work. And there's going to be some assignments that I'm going to assess and I'm going to get my eyes on. But the more you can get other eyes and their eyes on each other's work, the more you're going to get some of that assessment in different ways. Okay. I also think, to add on to this, and then I want us to process, because you might be like, I was hoping to walk away with something different. But the last thing I'm going to just remind you is that when it comes to assessment, and assessment, we could use, I feel like that's such a loaded term. We could say assessment, we could say feedback, we could say grading, whatever it is. there's different types, and I've shared this chart with you before. You might not remember it, but it was, I had it on the Padlet from way back in April. That was like a whole different world, back in April. And we looked at different types of feedback. And I thought now would be a helpful time to remind us of this. And one type of feedback is evaluation, assessment, right? This is like checking off that you did the assignment. You got the 5 out of 5. You did the work that you were supposed to do. This helps you understand and your parents understand how you did. So if Diane gets an A on the assignment, we know Diane is doing great. If Diane gets a D on the assignment, not so great. So you understand your progress, but that doesn't always teach you. Just getting the D doesn't necessarily teach Diane anything. Sorry, I'm picking on you, Diane, but like that doesn't necessarily do anything for you. Now, let's say Diane gets a D, but I compliment her. She didn't get an F because on the one problem, she did a great job of doing blank. Then sometimes a little appreciation goes a long way. Like, okay, you might have gotten a D, Diane, but you're doing a really good job with this. And so when I give appreciation feedback, that's the like pat on the back. That's the good job. That's the little sticker. That motivates you and encourages you, but I still haven't taught Diane anything. So I can give her a D, I can tell her good job, but I haven't moved her forward. So the more we can give assessment that gives coaching feedback, the better. And I've used this with you guys before, but I've been trying to think a lot more about when I have been grading kids with teachers. I was doing some of this with the school in Glen Ellen during a Wednesday when they were doing PD, and we were looking at kids' work, and we were putting scores on it based on their rubric, and even some good jobs. I'm like, okay, let's actually on all of their assignments. It doesn't have to be, perfect. It doesn't have to be. We'll think about how to make it manageable. But on all of their assignments, we got used to starting to put a compliment and a TP for a teaching point, or a star and a delta, or you can come up with that whatever symbol you want. But then what we were saying, this one teacher, Amanda, and Amanda was like, I'm going to teach my kids to look for the C and the TP. Here's what you're already doing. Here's what you need to be doing. Here's the yes, keep going. Here's the next step. So the more we can give feedback and assessments that gives the coaching, when kids are remote, we're able to kind of tackle more birds with one stone, if you will. Now, I get that does not solve the problems of us, like the sheer amount of work we have to look at, and the fact that we still have to give we have to give grades, and writing a compliment and a teaching point doesn't necessarily aid to that. But even if you can think, if you are giving a grade, next to it, writing the C and the TP, and even if it has to be copy and pasted, if you have a bank of like 5 main compliments for this assignment, 5 main teaching points, or even 3 and 3, then when you go to look at that star assignment for the week, you just copy and paste from your bank. Now, I'm not in the business of like everything has to be copy and pasted. I want to differentiate. I'm not saying you have to go that route, but I know there's a lot on our plates. So if I think about this one assignment as the assignment where I'm going to evaluate, but I'm also going to coach, then on this assignment, I don't just put the evaluation, the check, but I also do the C and the TP, or the what you're already doing and the next step. Does that make sense? You could even do it if there are rubrics and checklists, it could be a color that you guys highlight on. So it could be, I'm going to highlight on this rubric in blue, the thing you're already doing, in yellow, the thing you could be doing. Done. So you don't have to even, and again, this looks different for all of us based on our curriculum and our resources. But I think doing that highlighting, or doing just underlining it in a certain color, and teaching kids how to look for those things could be helpful when it comes to managing all these different things that we're looking at, and also trying to deliver the assessment or bring in the assessment piece that we know we need. My last little thought with assessment, and then I want you guys to chime in. Last time I was here, we talked about reading, and we talked about readers, and here, I mean, I was on the screen and we listened to my nephew Johnny, um, that awkward little video. But just a reminder that it could be helpful to ask kids to record themselves reading, even if it's a shared class passage, and have them set a timer. Have them say like 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, not even two if that's easier. But have them just upload those videos either to Google Classroom or to a Padlet, and having that data to assess when you have to go and work on your report cards or when it's conferencing time again, just having that video clip of a reader goes a long way. You can go back and listen to it. And I have, I'm not saying that it will always be perfect, but today with anybody that I heard reading or most kids, when you hear them read, there's something that you notice that they're already doing and something that they could be doing. So if you get those little video recordings of them reading, you can assess where they're at in terms of just their reading in general. You can figure out book choice, book interest, all of those kinds of things. So I would maybe that could be a good activity for the month of December to have kids submit videos of themselves reading. I'm going to pause there. Thoughts, talk back to me. Either things you would add on to that. I feel like assessment, the topic assessment, and Michelle and I, well, even when we planned this, I feel like it's such a loaded topic and there's so many things to think about. I don't know if any of that helped, if there's anything you would add on to it, if there's other struggles we're having in the topic of assessment. Thoughts? And no thoughts are
The only struggle that comes to mind is, I guess just making the time to make sure that the kids look at the feedback, because I'm leaving them feedback, but I don't really know if I'm giving time for them to look at it, which is pretty useless.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's think about that, Jillian.
And I think it could just be like that, feeling that crunch of time because we're down 5 or 10 minutes or whatever from normal. I don't even know anymore.
What if I can't make more time with you. But I'm one, I think I shared this before. If kids read the feedback and then try something, they have to highlight wherever they try what you gave feedback around, or a revision what they made, right? So literally say to them, highlight the place where you do that, or where you try that. I'm also wondering, Jillian, if we could, in our plan book, and this is where it's so hard, it just means we're getting through less content. You're like, I know, we are getting through less content. But I think it's worth it to say one day, the last 10 minutes of every Friday is look at your feedback from anything, from myself, from yourself, from your peers, any feedback you've gotten this week, and set a goal for next week. Could it be that it's every, and I'm with one school and they have to make that public on a Jamboard. I'm kicking myself because I wish I had an example of it. So they have a class Jamboard, and the teacher has her teaching chart right here, and the kids have to pick from the teaching chart what they're going to work on. That doesn't necessarily apply to what I'm saying, but I do think setting goals off of their feedback, Jillian, to your point, taking the time to do it. I mean, again, I can't create more time. I think that's tricky, but other thoughts with that? That was a not so great answer to her check-in. Could it also be that they have to talk back to you? I don't know if you guys, has anybody used the voice recordings on Google Doc to give some feedback?
No, but we just, our tech coach just shared one with us, because last year when we met with you, someone recommended voice notes and I struggled with it so badly. It wasn't working. I don't know, but then I think I also learned that you have to return it before they can hear the feedback, but she just shared one. It's called Mote, MOTE. Oh. You guys already knew about it. Well, it was new for us.
I've seen people using it that really like that one too. I thought of you when I saw that, because I remember going through that last year and the craziness of kids not being able to see it. But I think the key too is, like you said, giving them that time in class, and then what are they doing with it? Are you giving them some sentence starters to share with a peer, even here's, if our feedback has that next step for them, then in theory, they have something to do during class to act on that feedback. So I think, like you said, it is taking that time, but I mean, think about the amount of time you put into writing the
Yeah.
feedback.
Well, and
So-
could we couple it? You guys are getting me to think with what I said before with engagement and creating that John Hattie was talking about in his book. It's almost like if we do take that time, you have 15 minutes right now to create something that shows me that you're trying something that you learned from feedback this week. Whether it's make a little chart, make a little, I'm not going to give good examples with that now, but I just had that like, aha, like almost create isn't the right, well, it is the right term right now, but like do something as a result of the feedback to, like you're saying, Jackie. Maybe it's just record a video of myself explaining what I think your feedback means. I was also thinking if Moat works, could it be that kids have to talk back to your feedback? I'm not saying you have to listen to it then. You're like, I don't have time to listen, but just getting them in a habit of if you record yourself giving them some feedback, they record themselves saying back what they understood that to mean. Something to play around with. Not perfect by any means.
I guess another challenge along those lines is, I know what you said about not necessarily listening to what they say back to you, but like what I found to be a struggle is that they think that they're just turning things in to turn them in, or like the accountability part. Like in the beginning of the year, I cannot tell you how many kids turned in empty docs, and it wasn't accidental. Like they went through the effort of doing nothing and still turning it in order to like trick us, you know? And so that's like my catch 22 with giving them feedback and asking you to do something. I feel like they're already skeptical and looking for like ways around avoiding things. So if I don't really value it.
Yeah. And that's where I wonder, Leah, if it's, I'm not claiming, I'm not talking back and being like, this is the perfect answer. Cause I hear a 1,000% what you're saying. And I do think there's been a huge shift in education in a lot of ways. But one of the big shifts have been this mindset of completing assignments versus when you're in school, you're there until the bell rings. Like you're not going anywhere. Like, okay, you're done, Katie. Great. That doesn't mean anything. Like lunch hasn't started yet. You're like, you're still in school. You're still learning versus now that they're at home. It's like, I did the assignment, check, see you later. And I know they're on Zoom with us or whatever, but I do think, Leah, it's been a shift of do the assignment and check it off instead of like engage in the learning. And that's what I was saying before with like hockey practice. You wouldn't go to hockey and like only do the one drill and then just stand there and wait for your coach to come back. You're going to practice the whole time, but it's trying to get kids in that mindset has been really hard. I digress. Here's my thought. They will do it more for each other. They will show up more for each other than they will show up for us. And the more we can help them, this is what I was saying before, make what they're doing visible to each other, the more that they will engage in it. So it could even be that in a small group, you tell your small group one piece of feedback that worked for you this week. That's probably not the best example, but you know what I mean. It could be as a small group, everybody has a week where you assess one person's work. So like you've got person 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 weeks in December. First week in December, we're going to look at Megan's work on Wednesday. Second week in December, we're going to look at Katie's work. Third week in December, we're going to look at Elizabeth's work. I'm just making that up, but I do think I don't have all the answers to it right now. I know that's not what you're looking for, and I want to keep thinking through that. But
No, it was just like,
Yeah.
it's just a struggle that I have because like if they don't think that
they
I
don't
value
value
it, right? Like turning it on to them, but then it's like still getting them to speak. And so it's like choosing the battles, I guess,
Right.
and the best path and getting participation and getting it to be authentic. It's not a criticism of any kind. It's just like the way my wheels are spinning.
It's really hard. I also wonder, I think some of you have already dabbled in this. even if it's not, and I mentioned this before, even if it's not book clubs or it's not like I'm not in clubs right now or kids aren't meeting in that way, having accountability groups and teams that stick together with each other over a stretch of time has been really helpful for my group in Glen Ellen. Some of you might be doing this, but they basically have the same. I was there in early September and we talked about it. They haven't changed them yet. I was just back there a week ago. And they're keeping the same 4 kids are together in an accountability group. And they go there sometimes for their small groups, like they rename themselves and the teacher will send them there. Sometimes it's just they share their work with each other. There's different ways that they're working together, but they're feeling much more comfortable sharing things and doing things with that accountability group. I'm kind of digressing from the assessment piece, but I think that might be, there might be something there to think about too. Okay, I hope some of that helps. Yes, thank you, Jackie. I hope some of that helps. Again, I feel like I wish I could solve all the problems, but I think that trying to remind yourself, even if it's just pick that one assignment and circle it. I know that seems so silly, but it's like, try and pick the one. I'm not saying you're not going to look at the other things, but try and think, and you could look across 2 weeks. What's the not review? What's the not new? And like the star assignment. I'm not saying, like, I'm not saying you now have to spend 20 hours on that one assignment, but I think it will it will make your time spent with student work more meaningful in the end, because your reporting is going to feel stronger, because you weren't going, it wasn't about quantity, it was about quality with one piece, if that makes sense. And I think that sometimes what we go down with assessment is quantity. Like, let me look at all these assignments of theirs versus quality. Let me like do a deep dive into one assignment, because often that one assignment is going to mirror behaviors and understandings that you would see on other assignments anyways. Okay. That's my little tidbit for you for assessment. I'm going to pause it there. I hope this is working for you guys, these 3 little topics. Let me see. Stop recording.